Okay, and I wish Outi Korhonen, I wish to welcome Outi Korhonen. Outi Korhonen, now I forgot my presentation of you, but she's a multi-talented, how to say, art pedagogue?
Art educator and cultural worker. Well,
yeah, and she was working with us for one in last summer to make the report, but before that she was a multicultural regional artist for 4 years, working with transnational artists in Finland and finding ways. So she was, during those years, she was very much involved with the Sivuvalo-project and other art projects in Finland. So she knows everything about everything.
wow, okay. Everybody has said thank you, but I also say thank you for all. And especially thank you to you all for coming, and also for everybody who has contributed for doing this report, because this was a collective. I mean, lots of information was needed from the people who work in the organizations, and I really bothered many people with the questions. So what I'm going to do now is a short presentation of this report called Wandering Words, Comparisons of the Position of Non-Dominant Language Writers in Nordic Organizations. It's some like 60 and some pages about the structural position of writers who write in non-dominant languages. And many of you are the experts regarding this information. So please do feel free, if there are some things that you notice that are not exactly correctly, either in the inform or in my speech, let's collaborate here to create a more correct vision. But just to begin with, it's maybe good for you to know a bit how the information was collected. As sources, we used information from websites, all the official information about the guidelines, how to apply for grants, guidelines for applying for different institutions, and also emails, questions from people who, or questions to people who work in these organizations, and then other kind of like written sources, but mainly it was about the structural possibilities and how they are also expressed in the information that's available for the people who apply for different kind of support in field of literature. And these were the initial questions. So do writers who write in non-dominant languages have access to the possibilities that the institutions that support literature offer? And how is the evaluation done in case of the institutions that do have or offer access for the writers who don't write in the dominant languages? Because this was often like the main barrier in accepting or inclusion of people who write in other than the main language or dominant language. So how to make sure that the evaluation is done correctly, how to make sure that the quality is not decreased, and also how to offer a fair evaluation both for the dominant language writers but also for the ones who are not dominant language writers. As Masen said yesterday, also the writers who write in non-dominant languages in a way need a fair evaluation, and it's not, I mean, I don't remember how you said it exactly, but I think it was very interesting that also like the same kind of criteria is actually a benefit for the people who don't write in non-dominant languages. So it's not only about kind of offering a short way to the inclusion for everybody else, but having the same rules for all and same opportunities. Yeah, and this is the last question that I put a bit bigger, because I think now this is the moment. What can we learn from the solutions of other Nordic countries? How can we collaborate And today is also an important day in that sense, and I hope that you all will be active in the workshops and that this day will offer possibilities also for further collaborations, that this is the beginning of something and not just as Rita already cited. So precisely the report, I already mentioned, it's about the structural position in 3 types of organizations, which are the professional networks, mainly writers' unions, then state grants for writers, and the third, support for international promotion and translations. The field was much wider than we thought, and of course, maybe this was a selection that, or the classification that we made based on the Finnish art field, where each of these areas has its own organization, thinking in a very simple way that maybe the same would happen in all the other Nordic countries, but finally lots of work was done in finding out which tasks correspond to which organizations in each of the Nordic countries that were included. And the countries included were Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark and Iceland. And in cases where there was relevant information related to Faroe Islands or Greenland, also they were mentioned, but not treated separately. And Samiland actually was included as the kind of 7th or 6th country. Every time when we had the possibility to get the information from there, because it's actually a case of literatures that should be maybe considered as a separate one, so that it won't get lost in the national literatures of the other artists. And as Rita said, that it's a transnational literature that already, for natural reasons, takes place in the 3 Nordic countries, Finland and Sweden and Norway, where the Sami people are. Now, I will only show you these, like a simple resume in these tables. The first question was the admission of non-dominant language writers in the writers' unions. And this is the situation in the different writers' union, main writers' union of all these countries. So the questions, maybe there are a bit too many of them, but I think there is a difference of level of inclusion in all of them. The admission is open for non-nationals in all the Nordic countries and in all the writers' unions. But the language criteria already makes a barrier in some of the unions, which are here in Finland, the Union of Finnish Writers and the Society of Swedish Authors in Finland. I didn't include Sami writers in this table, but I think it's in the inform. It's not that relevant, I think, in this question. I mean, whether they accept people who write in other than Sami languages, but actually they do accept also people who write in other than Sami languages if they are considered to have a connection with the Sami culture otherwise. Then we have a third question, whether the admission is open for writers whose writing language is one of the regional minority languages. And the question of regional minority languages is in all the 3 questions treated separately. So even though there's not so much more information here, it's mentioned. And the regional and minority languages, if I use this word, the term is always defined as it's defined by the European Charter of Regional and Minority Languages. So from there you can find the list of all these languages. I can also say them here, but there are quite many, surprisingly many. Like here in Finland, we have 3 Sami languages, which are Inari-Sami, North Sami and Skolt-Sami, and other regional and minority languages, which are Fenno-Romani, Russian, Karelian, Tatar, Swedish and Yiddish, according to this list. And I'm not going to say all those languages of all the other countries, but in Iceland's case there are no regional or minority languages, and in Denmark there's only German, specifically in southern Jutland. I don't know how to say it, somebody from Denmark can help. Jutland, of course. And the case of Greenlandic and Faroese is treated separately, so it's not considered as a regional minority languages, but the main language of these places, which is also interesting. Yeah. So then the kind of fourth level of inclusion here is the evaluation resources for the work of membership applicants. So that for the evaluators, so finally whether there are resources to pay for the people who evaluate the work of the non-dominant language writers. And this is something that in some cases it has not been needed, and in some cases, as it has become more common that there are applicants in different languages, the organizations have created standard fees and like a fixed practice of treating the case, which can be also maybe useful and shareable among the other countries. And then the last, sorry, I went a bit far. The last one was about the approximate number of non-dominant language authors in comparison to other dominant language authors. Unluckily, we don't have now information from Sweden and Denmark, so it's not so. But if somebody here can complete the information, so we'll be thankful. In Norway, it's about 20 of 600. In Iceland, they estimated it to be about 2 or 3. One of them is here, Masen, originally from Palestine, who was invited by the Writers' Union to form part of the organization. And in Sweden we had an estimation from somebody else, but not the organization itself, so I didn't put it here. And now I would like to show shortly one of the examples of how the admission procedure can be resolved and has been resolved in one of the authors' unions that also had described very precisely and clearly this admission practice in their rules. So this is first just an example of a normal application procedure of Norwegian Authors Union, and here we have Kerstin Bennett, who very kindly offered this information, though actually it was easy to find also from internet, as you had it very well communicated. So this is the first case. It's already a bit more complicated than in some, like I think in Finland we don't have this two councils. So there's a board of directors, and then there's the literary council, and there's even Norwegian-speaking writer first sends the application to the board, and there's a separate literary council that makes the evaluation, and then the board finally approves the decision and communicates it back to the writer. But now if we have a case of a person who doesn't speak Norwegian, haha. So the writer, sorry, I'm so happy with these animations. The writer sends an application, and then the board of directors, I mean this starts exactly as the other one, sends the application to the literary council, and in case that they don't have the competence to evaluate it linguistically, so they send it back to the board of directors, and they have to appoint consultants to evaluate the writer's work. Then there's the evaluation of the consultants and also a standard fee for the evaluation. Based on that, the board of directors in this case takes a decision and then communicates the decision to the literary council, which approves it. It's a bit complicated, but at least it's very clearly described. And finally, there's also a possibility that if there would be disagreement, so this could be discussed in the yearly meeting, but this has not taken place yet. So, and so just to make the comparison here, you have the two options. Shall we go further? So this is the state grants, case of state grants for artists. And here we have one more. In Norway's case, there's Arts Council Norway. In Sweden, there's both Swedish Arts Council and Swedish Authors Fund, because the Swedish Authors Fund is the organization that administrates the state grants for writers. for individual writers. And we have here Jesper, is he there, from Swedish Authors Fund, who also kindly offered a lot of information of their practices. So in Sweden, the division of these tasks is a bit different. The Arts Council allocates grants for organizations and projects, bigger projects, and for published books, and Swedish Authors Fund for individual writers. Then we have Danish Arts Foundation. In Iceland, the grants are allocated by the Ministry of Education and Culture, and in Finland by Arts Promotion Center Finland. This is the most complicated of all, so there are some simplifications, because actually in mapping this field we noticed that actually the formation of income in each country of a writer is a bit different. So in one country the personal grants may be one of the most important ways to get income, and in some other the personal grants are rather small, but you can get more income, for example, with the evaluation work of other writers, or for example in Norway through a system called, do we have it here? It's like a purchase scheme for newly published books. So the Norway's Arts Council buys a defined amount, it's about between 500 and, I don't remember exactly how many, but you can check it from the info, copies of every newly published book that is allowed to get this, or that is evaluated good enough to get this support. And that's one of the very important ways to form the income. So it's actually, this is not very comparable, the different situations, because actually we should go through to make it like really, how to say, comparative through the different systems, so that it wouldn't be that simple, but I just say it here, and with the limitations present this information that we found. So, again, grants are applicable for non-nationals in all the Nordic countries, and whether the grants are applicable for writers who write in non-dominant languages, there are differences. So in Sweden, Iceland and Finland, they are applicable for writers independently of the writing language. In Arts Council Norway, there are some restrictions. It was specifically this purchasing scheme for newly published books, which is actually an important part of formation of the income, and that's only for books published in Norwegian or bilingual publications. In Denmark, both state grants for writers and also the public lending right funds, the PLR refers to public lending right remunerations. So the funds are restricted for literature written in Danish only, which is the strictest in this case. The public lending remunerations is an international system of paying for writers for their books for having been openly usable in the libraries. So this is an international system, and in the other Nordic countries there's no language criteria, but in Denmark, yes, there is. Then special grants for writers who write in non-dominant languages. There's another section, my question for that, whether the organization offers this kind of special grants. And here I have some kind of idea with the color codes. This is completely neutral, because whether it's necessary or like a benefit or not, you can think of it. Some people think that it may create like a separate field of migrant writers, and that it would be better to open the whole field for all. So in Norway, anyway, I think it's interesting to see different kind of solutions for this. In Norway, there has been at least like during a short period sample translation support for writers, and in Denmark there's a small special support for non-dominant language authors, but it has also limitations, because there's information about that only in Danish, and to apply for that you already have to have translations of your literature to Danish language. So the situation is quite strict. In Sweden's case, the case of regional minority languages is treated specifically, so they offer language-specific support for the regional and minority languages, which in Sweden are Luule-Sami, North-Sami and South-Sami, and Finnish, meänkieli, which is Tornedal Finnish, and Romani and Yiddish. So the idea there is to support the language community more than just the individual author's creation, and language literature as a tool to maintain the language community. Then we go further a bit more. So evaluation resources again. There you see yes, yes, no, no, yes. And languages in which information about the support scheme is published online is also interesting because it's one of the questions of accessibility. In Norway it's only Norwegian in case, except for the support for minority languages, which was also in English. And in Swedish Authors Fund, this was really nice in Swedish, English, Spanish, Persian and Arabic. And later, if you have chance, you can ask Jesper which is the reason why exactly these languages have been chosen. And in Arts Council, this is related to the kind of grants that they allocate. The languages are the regional and minority languages in case of the like specific info related to them, but also normally in Swedish and English. In Denmark only Danish, in Iceland, Icelandic partly English, and in Finland, Finnish, Swedish and English in all the support forms. Up. Yeah, this was the whole. Then we go to translation and promotion support, which is already the last one, so you have coffee soon. Translation and promotion support in Nordic literary export organizations. We have only 3 questions here. Whether the, here again the separation between the indigenous languages, because in case of, it made some difference. For example, in Fili, in Finland, Sami languages are officially included in the programs of Fili. In Norway, surprisingly, they are not included. And this is very special, because Norway is the country where the Sami language literature is mostly published, but it's not included in the promotion programs, international promotion programs. Instead, in Finland, if you really look at the rules, officially Fili's support is only for literature published in Finland, and there is no Sami literature publishing anymore in Finland. So actually, where you would have the possibility for the international promotion, you don't have the possibility to do the books. So for the Sami, in case of Sami language, this was kind of a locked situation that we found when looking at all these different organizations and the barriers that appear because the different organizations have their like personal criteria. Now, in case of Fili, it's important to mention that in the practical decisions they have been open and they have worked hard to support the Sami language literature, but here also it was important to check the kind of official rules and the information that's available for people independently, whether they know about the exceptions that can be done. Because it seemed that in many cases, if you look at this, in many cases we have no what exceptions can be done and no exceptions can be done here, you see. It's a very repeating way to treat this question. And I think this is, in a way, a good sign, because the organizations have noticed that it's necessary to take into account the writers who write in non-dominant languages. But the next step would also be to change the rules according to the actual situation, so that the non-dominant language authors or Sami language authors would not be depending on it being always exceptions, but also part of the rule. Yeah. Rita, what? Yeah, 5 minutes, yeah. It's almost done. I promised the coffee in time. We go to the recommendations now. And now you see the color is changing, because so far everything was information based on true sources and even people who can tell that this is how it's done in the organization. Some of them are also present here, but the rest is recommendations, so this is other kind of information or just proposals related to these questions. Yeah, I love the animations. One thing that was, even before doing this inform, appeared to be like a need is the shared Nordic multilingual network and web portal of literary critics and reviewers to make possible the evaluation in different languages, so that everybody could be treated in a fair manner, both the nominant and non-nominant language authors. The other one, mapping of non-dominant language writers and of the potential publishing companies in different Nordic countries, would be of great benefit to also unite resources and make it easier to increase also the quality of the work that's done in this field. Then the third, the literature published in non-dominant languages in Nordic countries. It's important that information of these things could be reparted also in libraries. And translations are important, of course. In this case, it's important that we also can read in the nominant languages the texts that are written in the non-dominant ones. So also we need translations to Finnish from some languages and from the others. Recommendations and proposals, I remind. This was something that was done in Sweden, and we picked it as a recommendation for others also. Inclusion of non-dominant language literature into Nordic literary canons and curriculums. What is Nordic literature? What is Finnish literature? Does it include the literature written in other languages? It should. And the case of Sami writers is our responsibility here in the Nordic area. There are no Sami language people or people who write in Sami language in other areas, so this is a question that requires, in that sense, special consideration in the literary institutions. And it seemed that it would be necessary to continue further the work of mapping the situation of Sami language writers to find out what kind of things could be done to promote their work. A lot has been done, and that's important also to mention. The situation of Sami language has improved. There have been these book fairs, and also, as I said, Finnish Literature Organization has worked to improve the position of Sami language writers. And also in the Nordic region, in the collaboration network of the Literature Promotion Organization, Sami language has already been taken as a special case. Yeah. And this is the red one, because this is my personal message to you all. I really want to thank you all for your friendly and kind and patient and generous collaboration. It's been a hard work to do the report, and without you I would never have done it. And for the poets and writers, I want to thank you for the inspiration, because we are all here because of the passion that we have for poetry and literature, and without that we wouldn't do the boring things either. So if you find mistakes, do please correct, and both here in the information and also in the world. And I thank you. And there's my mail, because I'm not anymore in Culture for All, so please note that the mail from which I send the mails, the questions, is not working anymore. My mail at the moment is outikor@gmail.com. And thank you. You see, you have your coffee break in time.
We don't have really any time for questions, but maybe we can take one quick question if there's anybody that would like to pose a question to Outi. Anybody? Any questions? Well, thank you, Outi, and also if you did not get her email address and you want to contact her, then you can get the information through us as well. So